Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as a one-hand mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we are working on a Sears Craftsman snow thrower. This is a self-propelled 24-inch path snow thrower that does not run. And today I'm going to show you how to remove and install a brand new carburetor. That being said, if you guys have a snow thrower that is not running, I have a very good video, and I'll put it in the link in the description below, on a snow thrower that has sat for a while and it will not run. And I give you really good tips on possibly getting it running, and you may not need this video. But let's get to this video, and I'm going to show you the two carburetors that I have found. Okay, so I have two carburetors. Both of these were purchased off of Amazon, and I like to use the OEM carburetor. Now, OEM means original equipment manufacturer, and that's what comes off the assembly line at the factory. And these are China engines on these machines that we are now working on, and it's been that way for many, many years. I have found two. Price difference is probably about $15 difference a piece, and I want to show you that this one here is one I have found. It's made by Yamakoda, or the parts from China, but it does say delivers OEM parts. So we're going to go ahead and open this one up. Now this should be the OEM manufacturer. This is the guy that I bought it from on Amazon. And it does give you, they give you gaskets, they give you everything you need to do the job, which is nice. Now this says right here, it's an HUAYI. That is, I'm pretty sure, what is on this machine. We're gonna go ahead and take it off, and that is the quality. This is the OEM that came right out of it. So definitely, if you can, when you get the carburetor off your machine, see if you can look up the original equipment manufacturer OEM online. And I was very surprised that I found it on Amazon, but it is a China carburetor. Now this is one that was very, very cheap. Comes with a couple of fuel filters. Funny thing is, there is nowhere to put a fuel filter on this machine, and they do have one in the gas tank, which I will show you. All right, so this also comes with gaskets, and actually comes with a primer bulb, which is nice. But if you look at this, there are no markings on it whatsoever. This is about as cheap as you get, and if you read the reviews, you'll understand it. I purposely bought this because I just wanted to show you the difference in the manufacturing. This is, the one on the right is OEM, has part numbers right on it, and has the name of it stamped into it. And this one here does not. It comes with, this one comes with the primer. It doesn't matter how much you get with the carburetor. They look pretty identical, but not. Like the bowl nuts are different. This is just a cheaply made. So you can try them. I mean, you can try them, but for the cost of this, I think this was roughly about $22. You can't go wrong with that price. This right here was an $8 carburetor, and I am not going to put it on the machine. I may use the bowl maybe if it'll work, but that's about it. There's really nothing good on here that I would use. So we're just going to go ahead and put that aside. I'm going to put this over here. We're going to go ahead and look at the tools that we need today to do this job. Okay, so tools from left to right. I always use my 1/4-inch electric ratchet. You guys can use whatever you can get with a 10mm socket. Deep and a shallow socket will help. This is a 3/8 ratchet I'm going to use. This is a 6-inch extension that we're going to use for the spark plug socket, which is a 13/16. You can use a deep socket, or just or if you have a spark plug socket that works good. I just showed you this about the OEM versus not OEM, and definitely want to go with the OEM if you can get it. A couple different pair of pliers here. We have needle nose pliers, a regular pair of pliers. This is the fuel line shutoff that I use. It's plastic. It actually works out really well. I got this from Harbor Freight. I'm not sure if you can get these online. You probably can. Spark plug. What was in there was a F6 RTC. You want the equivalent of the torch. I like to use NGK. Aspen fuel, which I will discuss this when we're working on the machine. Pair of vice grips, two 10mm wrenches. This is actually just like a speed wrench. This is a ratcheting wrench. It really helps out in a tight spot. 10mm wrench. And these are my clip fastener tools. I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to purchase these. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so I have it up on a bench so you guys can see what I'm doing here. This is a little older version. I think this is like the first or second version of this China engine they put out. So this is an older machine, and it has sat for a long time. Inside the gas tank, you want to check for any kind of rust. If there's any rust in here, we definitely don't want to have that, and you're going to have to clean that out or replace the gas tank. I wanted to show you that inside the corner there, I don't know if you guys can see that back in there, there's a fuel filter. Everybody says, is there a fuel filter? Yes, there's a fuel filter on this machine. It's inside the gas tank. Check to make sure that's not clogged up. And also, they have a magnet on the bottom of the tank. A black round piece right there, that's actually a magnet, and that will collect rust or any kind of metal contaminants. So you can also take that out and clean it. And I've already cleaned everything out, and that fuel filter inside that gas tank is in good shape. So we're going to go ahead and start taking this apart. Now this is an older style, which we have to take this choke knob off, and it's a pain to take off. My clip remover tools that I really like a lot, I try to use them, but you can also use flathead screwdrivers. And what you want to do is you want to get underneath, and you got to be careful. You got to pry it. And what I normally have to do is get under one side, open it up, get underneath the other side, if I can. And I'll take both of I take two of these. Now you can use screwdrivers, and you kind of try to pry them off at the same time. And just remember how they are on when you take them off. And they will come off, just take your time. Now remember, they have a little pin, like a little piece of plastic here that goes into this recess right here. So make sure when you put it back together again, you're going on the right way. Okay. The other hard one here, right here, is to get off. And I have found, put a rag over the knob, use a pair of vice grips. I wouldn't say go crazy because you can break the plastic, but just get it to where it is very snug on the knob. And you have to pull this off, and if you move it back and forth, you can feel it where it's connected, and then I'm gonna pop it off, just like that. And just remember that the hole on top, and then you also have a little U-groove right there, and that'll go in. Just make sure you remember how it goes back in again. Good to go there. That was the two hardest parts. Now we need to take off this cover. And you want to pay attention to the size of the bolts, just to make sure that you put the bolts back where they came from. Some are shorter than others. We have to take off these two right here. Okay, so we have to take off this one here and this one here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off this cover. These bolts are a little different than the bolts that go around the engine. That allows me to get into here, to get this one here out and that one here out. And just so you know, the difference between the cover bolts, this one right here is a cover bolt, and this one right here, it's a little more shiny. That's chrome one. That's actually the one that goes to the engine. Okay, so this should pop off now. Okay, so the carburetor is underneath here, and we need to get this off. And we can start by taking off this. This is the primer line right here to your primer bulb. We want to go ahead and take that off. You want to go on that side, I guess. The clip tool works real nice. You can just kind of put the clip tool in there, or just your screwdriver. If you use a pair of pliers, just be careful you don't break the plastic primer bulb. You just have to be careful. And I tend to use the pliers too. Once I get it out of there and I know it's moving, then the pliers will usually take it off. I'm just gonna take that off for now. And then we're gonna remove this cover. You have to take off these two bolts right here, are the two bolts that actually hold the carburetor on. So this cover right here follows around underneath the starter over here. This is your electric starter plug right here. I pull the handle out of the way, I wrap it around so it's not in my way. The pull cord handle. I'm just gonna let that hang down here. Now we do have to take off the electric starter. One of the bolts holds this cover on. Okay, we're just gonna pull that out, and it might, okay, so I normally do both. We'll just go ahead and take them both out because then you can see what's going on. The first bolt took that out right here. That's what it is, but it's going to be real hard to see it, so I just laid this off to the side. That'll loosen this up. All right, so now that this is loose, you're going to have to wiggle and jiggle it. And while we're here, we're going to go ahead and take off this cover right here. Two 10mm. These are two long ones. And then this will come off. Now you can start pulling this away. I just pulled this off all at one time, and basically this was connected to the electrical cable right here. This right here was, and it just clicked. It clicked right back behind here, all right? And now you can see where the carburetor is below right here. And you do have this tube right here. This tube actually will go in. Let me show you. This is where the tube goes right here. And that tube right here goes from your valve cover into this place right here. I'm going to put that off to the side. We have gasket here. You can replace these if needed, and you can use them if you need to. If you don't have gaskets, and as long as they're not sliced or cracked. It's important when you take this off right here that you remember where this goes. Okay, so I'm going to slide this off the end of the carburetor. It just 90 degrees and this will come out. Okay, so remember how that went. Okay, we're going to put that off to the side. Now we do have to take the fuel line off here, and also this is going to go onto the new carburetor right here. This is your choke. I'm going to go ahead and 90 degrees up, and that comes off. Now we're going to go ahead and pinch this fuel line off. This fuel clamp right here, original from factory, they hide it underneath. So I get my needle nose pliers in there to start, then I twist it around, and then just go ahead and use my regular pliers. It gives me a little better grip to be able to get this off. And this is very tight. They don't want any of these fuel lines leaking. So if you get off that far, if you guys have a clip remover tool, this is an excellent tool to get this fuel line off. And this has been on here for I think over 10 years. It's really tough, but the fuel line's actually in pretty good shape. It's not dry rotted. All right, so off it is. Coming over to the carburetor here, it should slide out. Now, sometimes you have to kind of give it a bump to get it to unstick from the backing here where your manifold is. There it goes. Before you slide the carburetor all the way off, you do have to take off, or you do have to get your primer line out of the way there. A pair of needle nose pliers, you're going to take off the spring. Okay, so there's a slot in the carburetor shaft right here that you'll be able to, once you have the carburetor pulled out far enough, it'll line up with this slot, and then you'll be able to take this right up off and out. It just comes right out. Very easy. I'm going to go ahead and take this carburetor off. Take it over to the bench. If I didn't lose all of it, we're going to see what it looks like. All right, well, that looks like it's got water in it. I always use a glass container so I can look to see what's inside it. But if you could only have smell-o-vision, it smells so bad. And this is actually that's cloudy because it has water in it. All right, and it's definitely really, really old. Let's just go ahead and see how bad this is. I might do a how to rebuild this carburetor on a different video, but if I do, I will link it in the description below. If you guys don't have a new carburetor put on and you need to get your snowblower going, sometimes you can rebuild them. Tap on this here. All right, so it's pretty ugly in there. So you can see how discolored this is. This is what gas goes bad and inside here we have some jets. All right, so I'm going to rebuild this on a different video, but right now I just want to see about our OEM carburetor. Now, this came right off of it, and it's an HUAYI carburetor, and it does have the numbers in it. So let's go ahead and show you that I did purchase the OEM carburetor on Amazon from China. It's exactly identical to it. We're going to go ahead, and the primer line feels like it's in decent shape. We're going to go ahead and take it off of here. We're going to put it back on here. Let's go ahead and put this back together again. Now I'm also going to flush that fuel line. Going to go ahead and put, this is Aspen 4. I've been using it for about over 5 years now, and it's great gas. It's 92 octane. I highly recommend buying some, and you can leave this in your machine. It basically will not go bad. I had one of these containers on the shelf for about 5 years now, and it hasn't turned, so it hasn't gone bad. This is 92 octane, no ethanol. It's straight 4-cycle. They actually have 2-cycle too, for anything 2-cycle, already pre-mixed. You can, I'll put a link in the description below. You guys can read about it and try to find out where you can get it in your area. Let me go ahead and flush some fuel through, and you'll see it come out. It looks like it's clear. I call it moonshine. I think one of the comments from one of my subscribers says they used to call it white gas. Well, this is, that's what it looks like. Nice and clear, 92 octane, no ethanol. The fuel inlet always goes towards the fuel line. Now we do have to get this gasket here lined up, and it goes like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that on. You're going to slide it in about halfway, and then that's where you have to hook up your linkage. And you should be able to just slide it right in like so. And then you got to get your small spring. I usually use a little smaller pair of needle nose pliers for this, but try not to bend it. I mean, if you bend it, you bend it, but try to bend it back straight again so it works properly. We already flushed that line, so we're good. Make sure you have a clean gas tank before you put this fuel line on. Make sure you flush the line. Put it on like that. Make sure you put this on the correct way. It's going to go like this. Just like so. Be careful you don't rip it. We're going to put our choke rod in, and you can see how it is, right like that. 90 degrees in the top. Slide it down in on there like that. It is pretty snug, but it does go on. Then we're going to put this in like so. Move this around like that. And put that in. Then we have the other gasket we have to put on like this. Just take your time. All right, so we're on there. Now we can put the cover on. Now when you put this cover on, you have the choke rod, the choke lever, you got to go through the hole, and you have these two studs here, and it's all has to go together kind of at the same time. And also, I just noticed right here, they have collars. They have chrome collars that are metal, and they can pop out. So this one started sliding out on me. You just got to be careful you have both of them in. And we're going to go ahead, and I'm already having a little bit of a problem with the choke right here, but you just have to work with it until you get it. I just pulled that out a little bit. I pulled the bracket out off the carburetor a little bit to get it lined up. The tube has to fit over the plastic grommet. And we're putting it in. Push everything together. Now right here, primer hose is going to go into, right here. You're going to snap that in, like that. Okay? And then your electrical will just go around the outside, and we have to put this cover right here on. And just remember with this cover that the bolt holes go right here. We're going to go ahead and slide this in. and it will sit flush with the carburetor. I'm gonna go ahead and put the long bolts down. And if it's sitting correctly, they should go right back in again. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and put the fuel or the primer line back on, the primer bulb right here. Okay, once we have it far enough in, I'm gonna go ahead and just start the nuts for the carburetor. That'll keep everything where it should be. Gonna go ahead and put this cover back in its place. Okay, you don't want to tighten them down too tight because you can crack this and you don't want to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and unwrap the pull cord. Okay, at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and take this spark plug out and replace it while we're here. This is what they call a torch. In fact, this guy's machine has not been used that much. If it looks in really good shape, you could probably use it again, but it's in the shop getting repaired. I'm gonna go ahead and put an NGK BPR 60S in here, 30 thousandths gap, make sure you gap it. I try to put these in by hand so you don't cross thread it. Go ahead until it's snug, and then after it's snug, you're gonna turn it probably 3/4 of a turn, feel the crush washer on the end of the spark plug will crush and get seated, and that's good and tight. And what I've seen by the crush washer is the spark plugs have a crush washer right here, and then when they're brand new, you'll feel it get snug, and then you basically turn them about 3/4 of a turn. But make sure they're in there nice and snug. I'm gonna go ahead and put the top on. Just double check everything, make sure nothing's binding, make sure your primer line is where it should be, your electrical line is connected where it should be. Make sure your tube is connected to the carburetor body and your valve cover. I'm gonna go ahead and, now this has a little lip on it right here that goes underneath the gas tank. And then the outside edge of this goes on the outside of their plastic. I'm gonna go ahead and put in this guy here. I always put everyone in hand tight. Don't forget your spark plug boot. I did. Just plug that in. You'll feel it click in there. We have 2 more bolts around this side. These can be a little tricky. You just have to have patience. And then once you have them all in, then you can go ahead and tighten them all up. Knobs. Okay, we have to put the knobs back on. Now remember that U is facing down like an unhappy face. He's going to be a lot happier now. And then you have the hole here, it goes on top. And you can just go ahead and push that in. It'll go all the way in. Now this guy here, slot here, goes in here. I'm going to go ahead and push that in. And now if they don't go in all the way, like this one's a little bit out, sometimes you just have to keep pushing. All right, looks good. Make sure you check your oil, which is over here. I know 100% that our oil has been checked and it's good. If you have gasoline in your oil, definitely change your oil. Your carburetors, they can actually let loose on the inside and take all your gasoline and move it from the gas tank to the engine compartment by going right through the carburetor, which has failed. So make sure that your engine oil has been changed, or at least it doesn't have any gasoline in it. Make sure you smell it. If there's any questions of it, needing to be changed, it's real easy to do. Just come right here. It's a 10mm socket that'll fit on the end of that bolt, and you can just tip your machine back. Right here, it shows you what oil it takes. It's 5W30. Have the choke on. We're gonna have about half speed. Make sure this is in or it will not run. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and prime it once, twice, 3 times. I'm gonna give it a pull, see if it fires up. We're not gonna run it too long because we're inside. Let me see. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so it runs real good. Now, sometimes, depending on how cold it is outside and you do this carburetor, you may need to run this for probably 10-15 minutes to get the surging to stop. Now, also let it set up overnight, come back in the next morning, run it again. If it doesn't stop surging after 15-20 minutes to a half an hour of warming up the engine, then you may have a bad carburetor. So it's important that you try to get the OEM if you can. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.